恐れず怯えず顧みず絶海を進むは北方連合の意志。同志指揮官共に行きましょう。氷溶ける暁に迎える栄光ある革命のために。アズールレーン期間限定イベント開催。
Hello, hope everyone's doing well. Today we're taking a look at the new Shipgirls from Snowrealm Peregrination. Sovetksy looks pretty good. The other one's got some interesting kits going on. Obviously, I have a favorite here, and as you can tell from my little count, I got her fairly early. I managed to get everyone but the one I really wanted, as a Paimat, but fortunately, she's the event shop ship, so don't worry about that. Hopefully, if you've done your polls already, then you got her fairly quick. Everyone pretty quickly. If you're already on your polls, hopefully you got everyone pretty quickly. If you're undecided, then hopefully this helps you decide if you want to pull or not. Alright, so first up in the new ship girls, we have Sovetksy Soyuz. She is a battleship, and she is quite good from what I've seen. Her HP and firepower are, I think, in the top 5 both of battleships, which is really good. Rest of the stats, not so much, but, there's a trade-off as always. She can use both CL and DD main guns as her secondary, so you have options there. Now, for her skills, her kit overall seemed just to be like a really nice power creep of Vanguard. I wish Vanguard didn't get power creep like this, but it's a decent ship to pick up. So I'd recommend getting Sovetksy Soyuz if you don't have Vanguard, or if you do, just a little bit of improvement. And obviously, Soyuz has a little more focus on Northern Parliament ships as opposed to Vanguard's Royal Navy ships. But she's got surprisingly good mixed fleet coverage if you're not using all Northern Parliament ships, which is nice. So for her first skill, Sublimation to sunder all storms, when she finishes loading her main guns, not when she fires them, once it's maxed out, it's guaranteed to fire a special barrage. And this barrage inflicts the following effects for 6 seconds to anyone hit by it. Increases their speed by 40%, increases their damage taken by 8%, and when Sovetksy Soyuz attacks the enemy, she gets a crit rate buff by 10%. So that's really, really good. Vanguard's is just the damage increase taken. So, yeah, the speed debuff and the damage buff, and then Sovetksy just getting better crit rate. Reminds me of just power creeping Vanguard and Duke of York, just all in one. Hell, even maybe West Virginia with some of his abilities. So, our second skill, Iridescence, to extol Solidarity's glory. When the battle starts, she buffs Northern Parliament ship's stats, firepower, torpedo, aviation by 15%. That's pretty good. That's pretty much expected for a faction leader. And this part of the skill is very interesting. While she's afloat, obviously, and there are 2 carriers or light carriers in your main fleet, increases your main fleet's accuracy by 10%, and your carrier's damage dealt by 10%. Now, it doesn't say this is like air raid assistance, so that could probably stack with one of the air raid assistance skills. So, Kazagumo, Yugure, Benson if you're really desperate. Mixed fleet coverage, pretty good. So you can run her with Chokolov and Volga, I guess to be the only 2 CVs that are Northern Parliament, but you don't have to run with those 2. You can run them with anyone because it's not specifying a faction here. So that's really, really nice, really, really good. Probably see her in some mixed comps for extreme challenge mode and stuff like that, or particular boss modes for certain events coming up. Maybe even the EX stage for this event. I believe it's a standard type event. And for 2 more battleships, battle cruisers, or aviation battleships in your main fleet, so her and someone else is all the requirement needs, plus her crit rate, reload, and damage dealt by 10%. So, yeah, that's pretty nice. Run her in a mixed fleet, or, yeah, just mixed fleet. Works good. Or with her, just with one on the battleship, and maybe a carrier. Now, when I first read that part of the skill, I thought it was the battleships, battlecruisers, and aviation battleships also get this buff. So you can either have 2 carriers in her or 2 other battleships in her. You get different buffs for each. No, the second part of the skill is only applying to her. Increases the ship's crit rate, reload, and damage dealt by 10%, not the bees crit rate, reload, and damage dealt. Which would have been really, really good. But I can understand why they did not make her that good. And this skill is kind of the throwaway skill. I'd level this one last. Adamantine, the walls of forts impregnable. When there's other Northern Parliament ships in your fleet, it increases their damage taken from burn by 15%. And during a sortie, when another fleet is battling and the ship is afloat, 18 seconds after the fleet's battle starts, she has her cross fleet barrage, which is always good. All the URs have them. And then she also decreases the crit rate of torpedoes hitting her and decreases their damage dealt. So she's just anti torpedo, which is nice. I'm not sure how often torpedoes end up getting to her. Maybe from carriers, actually. What about some dive bombers and not dive bombers, torpedo bombers? Doesn't say what bases are. So yeah, I can see Sovetksy Soyuz being very, very useful. She's very strong. She doesn't have the. She's just above New Jersey, I believe. I think New Jersey is 153 at 125, and Soyuz is 5 points ahead of that. But yeah, I can see her being very useful in a variety of situations. Now, I haven't taken her for a spin yet. I haven't had much time to actually. I haven't even started the event yet. I just barely did my pulls during lunch at work. But depending on what her barrage looks like, she can be good for both mobbing and boss fights. I'm seeing good potential for boss fights there, especially with the debuffs. But those debuffs don't only help battleships. You can also use it for carriers as a slow, increased damage taken, that kind of thing. Obviously, the slow is not as good as something like Implacable, but that's decent slow. And yeah, so Sovetksy Soyuz definitely worth picking up if you're able to. Now moving on to hard pronunciationville for this one. I had to open up in game how she pronounces her name. So Ognevoy, that's how she pronounces it. Well, my close on pronunciation how she pronounces it in game, but you know what I'm talking about. You can see her on screen. Destroyer, good firepower, typical of the Northern Parliament destroyers. Everything else kind of She does have decent anti-submarine, which is nice, but she has some interesting skills, and she wants to be maximum broken because it upgrades her all assault, and we'll see why it's important later. Well, you can read it now. But for her first skill, the strength of gentle sunlight, plus her firepower, nice. And I really like this part of the ability. While the ship is afloat, every 10 seconds, every ship in your vanguard recovers 1% of their max HP. That is consistent, that's relatively quick, and yeah, I like that. And the first time this recovery effect activates also increases the ship's damage dealt by 12% until the battle ends. So, more damage for her, and healing for everyone else in the vanguard. That's really nice. Just be cautious of fighting siren bosses and Opsai that have the heals get turned to damage taken because that would be very detrimental to you running her against that boss. Other than that, that's a really good skill. Quite like that. And second skill, Firepower Overload. When the battle starts, if there's another Northern Parliament ship in your fleet, she gains the buff Max Firepower, which every 20 seconds, she has a 6% chance to increase ship's firepower by 40% for 10 seconds. It's like the full firepower skill. Honolulu has it. Some of the Royal Navy ships have it. It's good enough. But she has more than that. And the problem with this part of her skill is, well, the first part of her skill is it requires another Northern Parliament ship in the fleet. So probably Soyuz or even Aurora. Actually, she can buff the Vanguard's damage even more. And then the second part of the skill, every 10 seconds, she has a 7% chance to fire a special barrage. If the barrage sinks an enemy, she fires the barrage again. But this barrage has a cap of 2 activations possible within 5 seconds, so you can fire it twice in a row, basically, is what it's saying. And that is only available at skill level 10. So max that out, get her maximum break, and you'll be good to go. And I usually don't cover all assault just because it's kind of easy to read and not much to say there. But hers is a bit different. So once she's maximum broken, her all assault changes to all assault 2, and it decreases the shots required. But she has a 50% chance when it activates to increase her firepower by 20% for 10 seconds. So a miniature version of full firepower, which is pretty cool. So yeah, good firepower stat to start with, and even more buffs. So overall, decent for your fleet. Gives you nice healing. That way you don't have to run Volga if you don't have her. Or you just have some Vanguard healing if you want to run a all Northern Parliament fleet. That's a decent pickup. And next up, we are starting with the elites of the Gacha pool. We have Poltava. She is a Gangut class battleship. So, like her sister, she is an elite. And she pretty much buffs her sister. And she does have a speed debuff, which is nice. But overall, not overly impressed with her. Design's not bad. I think probably my second favorite design out of the lot. But for her skills, Oathbound Chains, when the battle starts, buffs her firepower 15%. Nice. And when the ship's main guns hit an enemy, 70% chance to, for 8 seconds, decrease the enemy speed by 15%, and increase your Gangut class BBs and Northern Parliament Vanguard ships damage dealt by 12%. So it provides a nice little buff. For the Northern Parliament Vanguard ships, that part's pretty good. For the Gangut class, I believe that is just her and Gangut. So not a whole lot of options to work with there. Oh, Vestipol is also in that class. So not a terrible amount of good options there. Vestipol's not terrible. But yeah, she's an elite. Usually elites have really good skills and just their stats aren't the best. Seems like just not the greatest this time around, but that's okay. Can't win them all. And their second skill, protecting links during battle while the ship is afloat, increases your Northern Parliament ship's evasion by 10%, and decreases all your others, not hers, Northern Parliament's burn damage taken by 15%. So similar to Soyuz, has that anti-burn effect on the fleet, but Poltava's does not apply to Poltava herself. When the ship takes damage, fire a special barrage, and for 10 seconds decrease your Northern Parliament's ship's damage taken by 10%. And has a 20-second cooldown between activations of this barrage. Just limited usage. That's some nice ability effects to your Northern Parliament ships. There's not a whole lot of options there, and not a whole lot of fantastic options either. So, limited usage. I think once they get a bunch more ships, it may have more viability. But you got a nice design. And yeah, so there's Poltava. And next up, my personal favorite from this event, Paimat Merkuria meta. Now, I did not include it in my little slide here, but in game and on the wiki, she has an apostrophe after Paimat. I don't know why. There's not like an S. So is it Paimat's possessive of Mercuria? I also really like Paimat because she's very silly. And during the JP live streams, they have segments of Paimat doing silly things like playing Old Maid and working out and surviving a horror show like Saw. Bit bizarre that last one, but very silly. Always actually got a lot of personality. Fun to watch. Overall, she seems just a bit of an improvement over her normal self. Keeps a lot of the same abilities as her normal version, but just slightly improved. And improved of her normal version that is retrofitted. So, first skill, Shattered Solidarity. Every 12 times the ship fires her main guns, fire special barrage. And she also gets increased damage the lower her HP is. And then her second skill, Undying Light of the Imperia. When the ship takes damage, she has a 50% chance to gain the buff, Glory of the Past, for 10 seconds. And while under this buff, she gets Firebound Torpedo buff by 20%, and she dodges all attacks for 10 seconds. It's a very good survivability skill. And has a 20-second cooldown between activations. She has a very similar skill in her retrofit. I believe she does not get the Fireburn Torpedo buff in that version of it, though. And then Intertwining Memories, another skill. Increases the ship's firepower and accuracy by 10%. And every 20 seconds, for 10 seconds, decreases the speed of all enemies within 55 units of the ship by 20%. And I believe her default version also had a very similar skill. Then I got a slow. 55 units. I still don't know how far away that is. I think a good measure would be to see if Golden Hind has a number value attached to her void circle she spawns and see what that is. Get a good measure of what 55 units is. But yeah, I quite like the skill. I always like slows. And then Flickering Light, Paimat Merkuria. This is her auto assault, basically. Every 8 times fires main guns, fires with barrage. If she has Glory of the Past buff, so her dodge all attacks and extra fire for torpedo, it improves the barrage. And for Operation Siren, same thing, except when fighting humanoid siren fleets or boss fleets, so the sirens look like people, increases the ship's damage dealt by 5%. So yeah, pretty standard for meta ships in that regard at the end there. Overall, it just seems like another version of Paimat, very similar to her default version. And yeah, I quite like it. She is available as the event dropship and an event shop. So If you can't get her in the polls, don't worry, you can get her elsewhere. And you get her dupe copies from the shards in the shop. And yeah, so Paimat, pretty good. And I'm trying not to just say, oh yeah, I really like Paimat, so you should get Paimat. But yeah, it seems decent. She does unfortunately not benefit from Soyuz as much because she is under the meta faction, not the Northern Parliament faction anymore. That is one advantage that default Paimat and her retrofit have over Paimat meta is that they benefit from Soyuz and the other Northern Parliament buffs, while Paimat Merkuria does not get that ability. So, bit of a trade off there, but very similar ships. And lastly, we have the point accumulation ship, whose name I'm going to horribly butcher, just so you know. I did not get her yet because I'm not grinding the event, so I couldn't check her pronunciation of how she says it. And it's not on the wiki, so it is what it is. But Svirepy? Svirepy? Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. But overall, design, very unique for the Northern Parliament. She reminds me more of San Francisco, but very reminds me of like the punk aesthetic of San Francisco. Nice breakup from the Northern Parliament ships, just all looking the same. Not quite sure she's kind of got the maid outfit going on, but okay. Guess they need someone to wash the dishes and set the table. Firepower stat, pretty good for a destroyer, but she's an elite. And she's over the 200 threshold for ASW, so that's good enough for me. Nothing too special about her stats. But for her skills, Creative Burst, every 18 seconds, she has a 6% chance to fire plus barrage. When the barrage hits an enemy for 8 seconds, decreases that enemy's accuracy by 15%, and increases their damage taken from the ship by 10%. So, nice little debuff from the enemy. So while the accuracy part's pretty nice of the debuff, the increased damage taken is only from Svirepy herself, not from the rest of the fleet. So it's not like you can stack that with Helena, fortunately. And then her second skill, Undying Rip Roaring Spirit, plus her AA, which isn't the greatest, but it's not the worst. And after the ship has fired her main guns 15 times for 5 seconds, decreases ship speed by 3. Not the greatest ability, but she's a destroyer. She's got 48 speed, so that's decent. It's not quite the French levels, but not terrible. But once the effect ends, decrease her damage taken by 10% until the battle ends. Overall, not the greatest kit. If her debuff was increased damage taken from everyone, that'd be a different story. But she's a point accumulation ship, so more of a collection on this one. Nothing too crazy. No heals, no like really niche effects. But not every ship has to be super unique like that. They can just have a cool design, have cool effects around them. So one side thing before we move on to the milestone rewards, point accumulation, or the event shop and the drops. Endless drama in the Sleepless City. This is defeat enemy nodes. So it's 10, 20, 30, 50, 80, 110, 150. If you do this, you get a piece of gear. The Ascension box is a USB flash drive and has secret information on it. I don't know what the secret information is. If I did, it wouldn't be a secret. But it buffs HP, and at max level, it should be 500%. And it has a special skill, which is pretty unique. I don't think I've seen any other of these like freebie ones from events that are just elite skills that are elite pieces of gear. If your flagship is a battleship, battlecruiser, aviation battleship, decrease that ship's main gun spread angle by 2. So the shots don't go as wide, less chance of straddling, more chance of them just going directly at the target. Sometimes they'll have one hit and one go wide, or 2 go wide, both sides of the enemy. This helps with that. Be aware, I've tried, and it did not work, of putting Georgia with the Georgia gun, with the Admiral fire control table, and I think it's New Jersey that also decreases main gun spread, having Kronstadt in different fleet, who also decreases main gun spread. I don't think throwing this hero on is going to help either, but that whole combination does not make the honeycomb shell BB gun of Sakura Empire viable. It's still not. This still does not work out. The anti-aircraft 18.1-inch shell does not work well with this. There is a cap, it seems, on how narrow that can spread, and also it just goes long. So instead of being super wide, it gets pretty narrow, but it's still like super long. So it's like row of enemies. And I guess for the I forgot what stage it is. There's a conga line of suicide boats that just hell to deal with if you don't have a battleship in your your flagship spot with an AP gun. Maybe for that it could work, I guess. But yeah, that combo probably not gonna be the best, but good piece of gear to pick up. A lot better than other ones that just give like 2 points of luck or increased damage dealt to sirens or something like that. So pretty good. I'd recommend make sure you do enough battles to acquire this. And moving on to the milestone rewards, point accumulation. Pretty standard stuff. You can get some retrofit prints, you can get some skill books, some coins, cognitive chips, retrofit prints. Not a terrible amount. Looks like it's one of each of purple and gold varieties, not blue. So while it's not a lot, I think get some more later on, right? No, wow, I thought you got a lot more. I thought you got like 3 of the purples and 2 of the golds, but evidently not. That's not the case. So you get Svirepy, you get the DR prints, those are always nice. Get stuff for the augment modules. I'm running low on those, looks like. Get the universal T4 parts, making plus 13 gear, what have you. The UR Bullen, right aim for that. A few grabs Soyuz. For a pretty standard stuff. Oh, that's why there's mystery ones. Yeah, nice to grab these. Just retrofitting. And that way you can get your retrofits done. I know I recommended a lot of them in my beginner guide. And I realized that was a bit of a problem. So next up with the event shop, you can see we have Paimat Merkuria available here. There we go. We also have the Soyuz gun. Seems to be okay. Nothing too special. Obviously, the Georgia gun still always exists, so gonna be a bit for something really power creeps it. But worth picking up pretty early on. If you're gonna grab any of these boxes, I'd put them off to later. Grab the Union one, has a lot of good gear, has Hellcats, it has a twin 5-inch 38s, those are really good. Some cognitive arrays, and if you really need cognitive chips, you can grab some of those. As you can see, I am well past the need of having to grab them. I didn't realize I had that many. Grab the DR and PR prints so you can work on your ships. If you need cat boxes, you can get those. You also have gear upgrade materials of all the parts. You get 30. Woolens, oil, oxycola, basic stuff. So grab the gun, grab the DR prints and PR prints, and then if you are starting out and really need gear, the Union ones are really good. And then Royal Navy afterwards, I think you get the Barracuda from there. That's quite good. And then once you get towards the end of the event, I make sure to just see how many points you have. And if you haven't got Paimat yet, grab her. And then you get the metal crystals here. And I believe after the event, the meta shop will be updated with Paimat's things. Let's see. What? When was it? Yes. So the Paimat crystals for Limit Breaking Her will be available in the meta shop afterwards. As you can see, the ones for U556 are still there. They're sold out. So you can spend these crystals that you get from doing various things on getting Paimat. So if you can't get all the copies of her now, don't worry. You can finish Limit Breaking Her later. So if it's between getting multiple copies of Paimat's thing or getting the gun, the PR prints, I would recommend getting those. That way you can just get Paimat later. And there's not a whole lot to spend these on. Yeah, you can get some of these. I have not had an issue with needing these. I also don't use a whole lot of meta ships, so that's kind of on me. Yes, don't worry about not getting Paimat copies. Worry about getting Paimat. She's wonderful. But don't worry about not getting these because you can get them later. So I believe that's everything for the new event. If I missed anything and you want my opinion on it, just leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Overall, ships Soyuz looks really useful in multiple situations, not just oh this could be a niche use. Really good. If it's between her and Kronstadt in a few weeks or maybe next month, I would say Soyuz is probably better than Kronstadt in terms of getting, especially if you don't have good battleships or you need a really good battleship buffer. Soyuz is good. Kronstadt, you have other options to go for. Brest and Aegir are always available. We said Guam, so if you got Guam, then you don't need to worry about getting Kronstadt unless you really like her design, like her skin. Yeah, hopefully I didn't keep you too long. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you found it useful, share it with someone else. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.